Welcome back to Let's Talk Sedalia. This is the Smith Cotton High School News. I'm joined with
Ashley Young, teacher at Smith Cotton High School and director of our SPIZ organization.
So can you tell me a little about what SPIZ is?
I'd love to, Zach. SPIZ is the oldest club at Smith Cotton. It's been around since 1925, and it is our student spirit organization. We take care of organizing theme nights for various athletic events, but we're also there to support theater. We're there to support band, vocal music, and any of our other clubs and organizations that would like a student presence.
So is it student ran or is it teacher ran?
I am the sponsor of SPIZ, but I let my executive board kind of run it all. So most of our ideas that my executive board doesn't come up with, we'll put a we'll put a shout out to our SPIZ members in our GroupMe or in our Canvas page, and we get ideas from them all the time. So it's largely student led.
And do you fully trust your students to come up with the best ideas?
I mean, I've always felt myself as being a pretty creative individual.
Yeah.
But man, we've got a lot of kids. We're the largest student organization at Smith Cotton. We've got over this year we've got over 160 members, and that's a lot of heads coming together for one idea. And they come up with some pretty good ideas, pretty creative stuff. So it doesn't very often that I have to rule them out or anything like that. They usually have a great idea.
And how did you become the sponsor of SPIZ?
Well, good question. I don't remember exactly how long I've been the sponsor now, but Mr. Satnan, Bob Satnan, was the previous sponsor of SPIZ, and maybe 6 years ago, 7 or something like that, he came to me. He was going to give it up. He said, "Hey, Young, I think you'd be great at this." I didn't really know that much about it at the time, and he kind of gave me a little debrief, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah, absolutely." And so that's how it came about.
And is SPIZ like just sporting events or is it all events?
All events. Like I said, if we can get support for theater for the upcoming Wizard of Oz performance, band, vocal music, anything like that, we want to help them out.
All right. And your like football nights, they're all themed.
Correct.
Is it just the executive board that comes up with a theme, or is it all the students that pitch it to the executive board?
We certainly will take any ideas from our group members, but a lot of times it's the executive board that will come up with those ideas, and it's of course made up of students as well.
And how do you promote SPIZ?
Every year at the beginning of the new school year, we do kind of a recruitment drive, activities assembly. We get our name out there. We do shirts every year that kind of reps the brand, and a lot of word of mouth. Upperclassmen kind of tell the lowerclassmen, brothers and sisters, relatives, stuff like that. Over the last 4 years, we've grown substantially. So I look forward to continue to grow. And again, it's driven by the kids. The youth students are the ones that drive it, make it go, make it work, come up with great ideas. I'm just there to fill out purchase orders so we can buy stuff. That's about my role.
Yeah. How do you promote the nights, like blackout nights and stuff like that?
Couple of different ways. We've got our own Instagram page, Spizdagram, that we post on. We post through Canvas. We post on our GroupMe that we still have. And then a lot of times the individual sport, whether it's football, basketball, wrestling, whatever it might be, their booster club might also tag us, or we'll tag them and we'll link up with them as well.
All right. And what do you have to say about SPIZ?
Well, I think it is a very attractive club for students at Smith Cotton looking to be a part of something to join, because you don't have to have a certain grade point average. I mean, we do have a $20 fee that gets you the shirt basically. But it's welcome to anybody and everybody. Like I said, there's no qualifications you have to meet to be a part of SPIZ. Even kids who didn't pay the $20 to get the shirt this year, they're still part of SPIZ. They filled out the application, they're in the group, they're part of it. And then to encourage as much of our student body as possible to get out and come to games and support our teams, to support our theater department, our music department, whatever the case may be. It gets you in the same place with a lot of different people. Some of them many of them you may not, but it gives you a great opportunity to meet new people as well.
All right. And do you have any specific things you need to be in to join Spiz, or
Not at all. Yeah. It can be the kid who's involved in everything. It can be the kid who's involved in nothing and maybe is looking to be a part of a group or an organization. Yeah. If you're a student at Smith County High School, we want you being part of Spiz.
And do you foresee Spiz to keep going and growing?
I certainly think the growth we've seen in the last 4 years is very promising. I am looking forward to it continuing to grow. Already some of my, some of the individuals on my executive board that are sophomores or juniors have already thrown a couple of pretty good ideas at me. And so it seems like each year, whoever the president and the various vice presidents are, they want to outdo the previous year's presidents and vice presidents. And I think in that way, it'll continue to grow. I think we've gotten a lot of good press, word of mouth stuff that helps it grow every year, or at least maintain. And so, I would think as we keep on pushing down the road, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, I would like to see it. I'd love to see it 300-400 kids. So that at away games, we can have 100 kids in a visiting section of bleachers for something.
Yeah. All right. Well, I thank you for joining me. And we'll go on and keep promoting Spiz.
All right. Zach, thank you very much.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Welcome to another session of Let's Talk. I'm Ron Pungler, one of your co-hosts of this program. We're coming to you today from the studios of WK Chevrolet right here in Sedalia. And we would like to thank those folks for allowing us to use this recording room. And hopefully we'll get into some things that are of interest to everybody today. The purpose of Let's Talk is to keep the public informed of news in Sedalia and the surrounding area. Hopefully, you'll learn something about your community and learn something about people that you've never had the opportunity to meet yet, or that you've met and there's a lot more to know about them. So that's our idea going forward. Our guest today is Ms. Ashley Stark, and she is the Director of Safety and Security for the Sedalia 200 School District. Obviously, this, given what seems to be happening year after year in our communities, obviously her position is one of extreme importance. And we're going to get further into those details today, see what Ashley has to provide to us. So first, I just want to welcome you, Ashley. And if you would, please give a brief introduction of yourself, education-wise, previous work experience, anything else that you think the public would be interested in.
Well, good afternoon. Again, Ashley Stark, Director of Safety and Security. My history is, once I actually graduated from Smith Cotton, I went into the military. I was Navy, jumped out of helicopters for fun. My baseline job was a machinist mate, but I was aircrew search and rescue. After I returned home in 2010, I actually went to be a physical therapist and changed my mind and decided criminal justice was more along the way I wanted to go. I worked with juveniles in the juvenile world for 7 or 8 years, and then I started with the school district, I believe, in 2018.
So when you say you work with juveniles, are you talking like the local juvenile system through the county or state, or?
Yes, so I worked with the county first at the juvenile office here in Pettis County, and then I transferred over to the state. For a short time, I worked in Johnson County, Kansas with juveniles. Definitely introduced me to a whole new world, different juveniles, even the laws and regulations are different in Kansas, and worked with human trafficking a little bit over there. that's where I decided I wanted to come back and here and work close to home, being close to my family.
Ashley, very interesting regarding your past history, work history, and the things that you got involved with. A couple of things come to mind when I hear you elaborate on that. To go back, one, when you were in the Navy and jumping out of helicopters, and you said that one of your primary functions there was survivor. What's the word I'm looking for?
Search and rescue.
Search and rescue.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, were you stateside during your entire time with the Navy?
I was in Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I'm guessing that when it comes to that type of assistance, you really don't have to be overseas or in a war zone to have to deal with that type.
No, but the Coast Guard gets called out stateside first in the United States. When you're in islands and whatnot, then the Navy usually gets first because Coast Guard isn't around those areas.
Yeah. And when you talk then a little further into your career, when you were over at Johnson County, Kansas, I can certainly imagine how that would be different than here or Pettis County size and so forth. I would guess you've probably got a few stories you could tell about dealing with youth there.
Yes, especially working in the detention center a little bit. It was definitely different than around here, for sure.
I would also think that all of those areas that you've talked about that you've had history in, plus your position now as Director of Safety and Security, I would guess that you go from one end of the spectrum to the other, meaning that it is a very enjoyable and rewarding occupation on one side, but I'll bet you ran into a lot of stress, pressure, unhappy things, at least with the people that you're dealing with on the other end of the spectrum.
That is very true. You're wanting what's best for the juvenile. Sometimes the adults you're dealing with aren't always on the same page, or they're not doing the things that they need for the children to succeed.
I agree, and that doesn't surprise me a bit. So, along with your work history, how has your education been entwined with that? I know you told our listeners you were originally a graduate of Smith Cotton High School, and I'm thinking that was around 2001.
Yes.
So, what happened education-wise as you went from there?
I started out in college for the medical field, actually, and decided that college wasn't for me. I am more of a hands-on person. That's when I went to the military. I did obtain my EMT prior to the military and then had to do it again in the military. So the EMT in the military is a little bit different because you don't have all the necessities that you do when you're in a school, as far as you have tourniquets and stuff like that, but a lot of times in certain situations you have to use sticks for splints or rope or whatever you have available. So that was a little different. After I got out, I did obtain my criminal justice degree.
Now, was that from UCM?
No, I started here at State Fair.
Okay. And again, just as I think about that degree, I would guess that worked in quite well with what your work life evolved into as far as getting here in Sedalia and what you're doing with Sedalia 200.
Yes.
How did you get this position?
I had to work my way up. I started as a security officer when the school district expanded security officers in 2000. I can't remember if it's 17 or 18, but during that time, I was one of the first hired. I worked between the junior high and Whittier, and then the next year I moved up to the high school. Actually, I think in the middle of the year, I moved up to the high school, and I worked there up until the school year last year, and that's when I became into the director position.
So when you talk about like initially being at Whittier and junior high, are you and others today that are working under you, but are you kind of the sole representative for safety and security at those buildings?
Yes. Since being in this position, I have brought some training to the table for my security officers for more safety aspects. Prior to, I don't think we were trained as well as we should be in the safety mentality, but that's what we're here to do, is provide safety and security. So I have brought that to the table, and I have a very good team, to be honest. I have a really good team.
Excellent. And when we talk about training, I mean, I would guess that a lot of that is from the outside or canned programs that you're getting from somewhere. But along with that, I would think you'd be doing a lot of in-house stuff, even amongst yourselves.
Yes, we have certain training that we have to abide by yearly, which is qualification shooting. We have defensive training for defensive tactics. We have to have yearly certain hours. We have building searches, certain hours yearly. And then on top of that, all of my guys are stop the bleed instructors, and we're all CPR trained. We are also trained to assist with the special education department in case of behaviorals and properly securing those kids to where we're not harming them. All of my guys have went through that training. Coming up, we will have training with Bothwell that I am helping. Becky Eldenberg is helping me. I'm making a guideline, and we're going to work together to teach basic care for my security guys. I think it's a necessity, especially when the facilities are growing, as everybody is aware, at Smith Cotton High School, and sometimes an ambulance getting there is 15 minutes. So I would like my guys to know blood pressure, chest rising and falling, the accurate pulse rating for certain aspects in case emergency arises. When they're at an event, they know what to do until that ambulance comes.
And what did you say again was the year you started with the school district?
2018, I believe, is when I started.
Okay.
2017. One of those years.
We're talking 6 or 7 years.
I know this is my seventh year.
There you
Put
go.
it that way.
There you go. So, how you've kind of touched on this, but how would you say your position? Because there was somebody in your position prior to you, was there not?
Yes, sir.
So how has the position evolved since you came on board?
I have implemented is more than I probably can chew sometimes. Just walking around, seeing things that need to be done. This position was new 3 years ago, or now 4 years ago this year, and it just wasn't developed. So I have really geared towards trying to develop the position with the district, and I've taken my own road, I guess. You know, they kind of told me the things I was in charge of, and then I've just taken action of seeing things and going about my own way to evolve what I think has been great for the district.
Excellent. Who do you answer to? Who are your supervisors?
My direct supervisor is Jason Curry, the assistant superintendent, and then it would be Todd Fraley, the doctor of the superintendents.
Right. Okay. And again, you've said that the position has evolved quite a bit since you've been on board, and I mean, you've certainly been a big reason for that. With it sounds to me like administration has really given you the authority to kind of take it the way it needs to go.
Yes, they've been very supportive, especially Dr. Fraley. He has been absolutely very supportive in the role I have taken on. My first thing that I really wanted to do, and I had some pushback at first, but then the assistant principal, Mr. Doyle, went with me to a day traction conference, which is Teens to Prevent Traffic Crashes. And it's ran through MoDOT. It's grant funded. We don't have to pay anything. And I took a small group that that program really took off and they did well. And so with that, I really went off on to other things in the school district. Because traffic safety in school zones, pedestrians, all those things are within the school
Sure.
that really hasn't been touched on prior to me coming in this position, but very important. So I've really really driven hard with those things.
So when you talk about this training, that you were elaborating on earlier, is there generally a process in place with whoever comes on board in your department basically has some type of standard testing that they do in the beginning, or is it primarily determined once they're here what say person A needs as opposed to person B?
No, so that wasn't really implemented before I came on board, and I have kind of made my own little training program. Now you have to supposed to be either law enforcement or military background. On top of that, now it's implemented to have a psychological evaluation, as officers on the streets do as well. So that is implemented into hiring process. And then once they're there, they have to have all the training that we all need, which would be if they are military, they have to go to a school protection officer training, which is a 3-week course. It's out of the post training for law enforcement of 120 hours. It's taken right out of that curriculum. And if they are law enforcement, they necessarily don't have to go through that unless they want to. They have to have I make sure they're CPR trained. There's a school safety academy through CES, and they all have to go through that when it's available at some time. They go through the Stop the Bleed courses, the shooting qualifications, the building, all those things that a law enforcement officer would have to do as well. I'm implementing other field training, and they have to follow someone to teach them all these things. I actually have an officer, he's a newer officer of mine at Skyline, Kevin Klein, and he is helping assist a field training program with me. And he has taken action on this, and I reviewed it I guess it was about 2 weeks ago, and he's doing a really great job. And so I'm letting him take charge of that field training thing that I've kind of implemented, but I like them helping because we're a team and we all work together.
It's interesting. I did not realize Kevin was with you. I've known him since he was knee high, and of course he was a very talented investigator with the local police department for a number of years.
Yes, I worked with him prior at the juvenile office, so I was aware of how intelligent he was before, and I'm glad to have him on my team. He's really been a very well asset to the team.
When you talked about the people that come on board for you or with you, you mentioned that they typically have either military or police backgrounds.
Yes.
So, just to use me as a guinea pig, if I was a few years younger and came in as an accountant, I'm guessing I wouldn't meet muster.
No, you probably wouldn't have the training that you need for the job.
Yeah. So when people are coming on board, are you responsible for the hiring?
Yes. When we have interviews, it's typically the building principal where the opening is at, and then myself and Jason Curry, if he is available, he does attend the interviews as well.
Very good. So the way your staffing is right now, of course, you've got somebody at every school.
I do.
Now, when I say somebody, is there generally one officer at each school, or in some cases, is there more?
There's one officer under me at each school, and then we have 2 SROs, one throughout the Pettis County Sheriff's Department and one for the Sedalia Police Department.
Tell me what that stands for.
School resource officer.
Okay.
So they're split between the school funded and their entity, and the high school is Pettis County Sheriff's Department, and the junior high has a police officer there.
Okay. So you've got your own own people at each school, and then there's a county, sheriff's department, and city police in addition to that.
Yes.
And again, just to be redundant here, they are primarily at the higher levels, high school, junior.
They are at our bigger campuses. They assist us with our elementary, middle school, and Whittier when we need them.
Okay. Now, again, given the way things are today and the importance of safety, is it fair to say that in each of those schools, the security officer is armed?
Yes, every officer that I have is armed.
Okay. You mentioned something earlier about coordinating with Bothwell Regional. Just thinking here off the cuff, I am guessing that between Sedalia 200 and Bothwell Regional Health Center, those are probably the two largest organizations in the community as far as staffing and safety and security.
Yes.
And I do recall, it's been a couple years ago, but at I think it was a Rotary program I was at, there was the head of security from Bothwell Regional that was there. And of course, this is not their day, but they certainly seem to have a lot of people working in that environment as well.
Yes. I think their qualifications may be a little different, but they do have a lot of employees as well. And we do, when we qualify for our shooting, they are there with us too.
So in addition to the officers at each school, and then I'll call it the two floaters, although that's not really right, are there other employees in your department as well?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. I'd be the first to admit that I'm sure high school today is vastly different than in my day. Heck, I would guess it's vastly different than in your day. Do you find the students, by and large, to be respectable, cooperatively, whatever the word is?
Unfortunately, no. I've seen walking through the halls and being at the high school for some time. There's not as much respect there as it used to be towards adults and staffing. And that's sad because they're there to help and to teach. And the school district does a lot for children to make sure they're safe, not only at school and their needs are met, but our district is really good at making sure those needs are met outside of school. And our social workers work very hard for those things to happen. And so I wish times were different, but, going to conferences with other schools and other directors, it's an ongoing issue between all schools. It's not just ours.
Well, and obviously there's issues with, I'm sure, a number of students, but likewise, I'm sure there's also some excellent individuals that.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like everything. You have your groups that are amazing, and then you have just a stair step of kids that, and that could be their life at home. You never know what's behind that closed door.
Sure.
And whatever it is, they could be having issues at home that maybe isn't being addressed, and that's part of their issues at school. And that's a lot of the things that even our security can look behind, and they try to help them with those things, because I always tell them when they say, well, this kid's having a big trouble, well, you don't know what's behind.
Right. So let's stay on the high school just a little bit. I'm not intending to pick on it, but we can't hit every one. And of course, the older students are at the high school. When it comes to the officer on site, my guess is there's a big goal for that officer to be seen regularly and to interact, at least to the extent that they can, with the students and faculty.
Very much. And the officer we have now is Tanner Proctor, and he is prior military as well. He is also a Smith Cotton alumni, and he is always roaming the halls. I think he's done a fantastic job of building rapport with kids, doing always seen. Everybody knows who he is. He really does tackle those things well. He's not an office setter, so that's good.
So, all right. So this individual that it has the high school, and then as you told me a little bit ago, of course, there's somebody else at the high school from the county sheriff's department, and then one other police department person at junior high. How does, again, let's go back to the high school. How does the interaction of the sheriff's department employee vary from what from what your individual does?
Well, we're very fortunate, which I've met with a lot of schools, and they have a great SRO too. And our SRO, Asbury, he again has a good rapport with the students, and he's there more for criminal activity. He has guidelines he has to follow, just as obeying the law as you would on the streets. So working for the school district and then working for both entities is a little differently. There's things that he can't do that our security officer can do. So they work hand in hand, making sure that everything is directly the correct way and worked out accordingly for the entities inquired.
So with regard to the positions at the high school, how about the utilization of canines?
I think it's amazing. So our canine at the high school is Asbury's canine. That's with the sheriff's department. And most of their SROs with the sheriff's department all have a canine. Now, their canine for the schools are not for drugs. They're ammunition, anything to be able to smell bombs, ammo, those types of things. It's not a drug dog like some people think.
So the fact of the matter is then that this canine has not even been trained in the area of drugs.
No, sir.
So you don't expect to get something on the side in that way as far as locating it, because again, it's more of an armed situation.
Yes.
Do you ever have, or does administration ever have drug sniffing canines come through periodically?
We hadn't in quite some time, but I don't even know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, we did have a dog come through and work through the parking lot or the hallways. Now, they can't be interaction with students, so students can't be in the hallway. But yes, we just had that done.
Can you share how that went?
They had some hits. Unfortunately, with it being legalized, some smells are on kids' clothing or whatnot that the dog does. He's doing his job. He smells it, but we didn't have an issue at that time. Not major hits on anything that would be of concern, except for the smells from probably homes.
Sure. Earlier, again, as we were talking about Smith Cotton and the officers that are there, of course, you made reference that it can be fairly trying for them at times. There's a lot of students there that do give them the respect that they should have, but obviously there's not. Now, there's others that are not. Now, if we jump down to a grade school, let's say Skyline, I'm guessing that the officer at those grade schools has more of a hero status as far as those young kids are concerned.
You'd be surprised.
Really?
Unfortunately, students that see officers a lot are scared of them. They don't know that they're good people because in their eyes, they've either been taken away by an officer, it's just the world we live in today. Once they build that rapport and see that we're good, I know I helped Skyline a lot last year when we didn't have an officer. And there were some kids that just did not like the officers. And I made a point to take off my duty belt and make a rapport with that child to make him aware that it's okay, I'm just human too, and I'm here to protect you. And then now when I see him, I do have my duty gear on, and he talks to me every day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just the conception of, oh, I see you, you're a cop, you're gonna do bad, because of what some kids see in their homes or not what others see.
I think back when my kids were in school, when you were in school, a big program that I think was primarily handled through the Sedalia Police Department was, you remember the old DARE program?
It's still there.
It's still there.
It's at the junior high. Yes.
Okay. Does your department have any involvement with that?
No, we do not. Sometimes I know I've read letters to pick the winners of the DARE program with the best essay. The police department still handles that, and they come to the junior high, every week, and it's still a going good thing.
Yeah.
It's moved up from 5th grade when I was in school to now 6th grade.
Right. Another just kind of a side item. I'm also aware, of course, you see it with the city police department and in the county sheriff's department. Whenever they take something that was involved with an arrest that they made, be it a vehicle or something else, and I think those things still end up being, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but retained by the departments and used if necessary for them, or if it can be helpful. That's really not relevant to you guys, is it?
You're talking about drug paraphernalia and evidence?
Or a vehicle used, where you found drugs or...
No, I'm not going to say that we haven't found those things, because, just as any school district, that does happen, especially when you have teens driving and those things are in vehicles or whatnot. But we have to hold it as evidence if it's a juvenile and they go to court, per se.
Right.
But it doesn't attain as much as it does in the law enforcement rule.
Yeah. And for whatever there would be, again, I'm kind of talking about obtaining possession of it going forward, having it titled over to you or whatever. Again, whatever the item is, but that really is not relevant to you guys.
No, it is not. So if that was to happen, we all have body cameras to where if we do find something like that, they can turn on a body camera and it will go back to video. And that's when it is turned over to our SROs. Our SROs or then come in as the law and take over those incidents and then build reports on that.
I'm glad you mentioned the video cameras, because I've had discussions in the past with the sheriff and with the chief. And of course, both of those groups, I think pretty much everybody uses those body cams nowadays. So the same thing goes with your staff. Pretty much everybody uses a body camera.
Yes, all of my staff have a body camera. Not only to protect themselves, to protect the student,
Sure.
staff, or whoever may be. So it's not all hearsay, and there's some footage to whatever incident it is.
What, in general, like with the system that you all use of body cameras, do they recycle after a certain period of time? In other words, do you have a day's worth of records that you do, and then you start over, kind of like a security system in a store, let's say?
Right. So we use Axion, and they hold up to 12 hours on the camera.
Okay.
And then we download it to a system through Axion. It's called Evidence. And then we have that for our records if we need it.
Okay. And that probably goes to the cloud where you've got all kind of storage capability.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just talking about issues in general, I know I made a note of just the structures that you all have to deal with in your work. And of course, there's the individual schools, which there's a lot of those. We had sports facilities that were all over town for a while. And of course, everything is being centralized now out at Smith Cotton, which I have to think from your all standpoint, that's kind of nice.
I think it's going to be great.
There you go. There you go. And then, of course, there are other structures as well, like early childhood and what have you. Do you, I'm not trying to get you in trouble on this, but do you feel like you are staffed adequately enough for what you would like to do, Ashley?
As far as the security aspect goes,
Mm.
I do. I just recently, they are allowing me to hire a part-time individual, so that's up. You know, the junior high scares me sometimes. It's a big campus with multiple buildings. And even the high school's huge. But adequately through the school day, we are much better than most school districts are. So we are very fortunate in that. I know there's school districts around, so I'm on a national advocacy director of safety and security board coalition for the nation, and meeting and helping other schools in that aspect of getting where they need to be. We are very high compared to a lot of other schools.
So when in that analogy, when you say we're very high, I'm guessing you're saying we're very high with the quality and success of the people in your department. Are you also referring to the overall level of safety, respect, so on and so forth with the students as well compared?
I think so. Yes, I think for both. We, as the security for sure, we are definitely beyond a lot of school districts actually in the nation. There's been a lot that do have them, or there's schools trying to get SROs or security. We are one of the only private security in the state that have as many as we have and that run the way we do. I've had a lot of phone calls about asking how we go about it, what our regulations and policies are to do so. And it makes us feel good. I mean, I know the superintendents as well, that we are beyond what other school districts can handle.
That is excellent. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what a tremendous reputation.
Yeah.
To have amongst your peers.
Yes.
Just tremendous. And of course, when we think of safety, I wanted to delve into a few things. And of course, safety is the biggest thing we think of when we think of your safety and security group. But there are other things as well. But staying on safety for a little bit. Obviously, a thing that comes to mind in today's world are intruders.
Right.
And of course, you've got security in place everywhere, assuming double doors, locked doors. Somebody can't come in and directly be in the central hallways, that type of thing. A lot of schools have had to go as far as metal detectors. Obviously, a tremendously expensive process to have. What's your mind telling you about the potential of the district going that direction at some point?
Really on the fence, but being kind of an active shooter trainer and working in that field quite a bit and being trained nationwide with those things, I think it could be a waste of money and funds. For instance, the high school. There's 30 some doors at the high school.
Uh-huh.
You have metal detectors at 1-2 entries. If those kids, unfortunately, sometimes, there's unlocked doors. A teacher forgets to lock the door, or they slip in behind somebody. You could, if you really wanted to perform those shootings, you could place a bag in any door and come through the metal detector. So there's no guarantee stop. There has been a lot of schools that I've spoke to that has them. And, they say the same thing. Well, then they come through other doors. So I'm really on the fence with that, because there is always options if that's really what they want to have happen. I believe our dog at the school is probably better than the doors, because the dog walks the hallways, the dog's everywhere, and I think we would get more from our canine than we would those in our facility.
Excellent. Excellent. Um, the other areas that you don't necessarily think about that your group is involved in. I mean, I'm sure you have cooperative things and training with the fire department.
I work very closely with the fire department.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Obviously, all those nice schools, we want to keep them that way. I'm sure you, hopefully not very often, but you probably had to deal with bomb threats, which again is just another thing. But then there's those really less obvious issues that you still might have involvement in. Parking lot safety, sidewalks in the winter, traffic control, and that's actually a big one that comes to mind to me because, with what was out at Smith Cotton to begin with, a lot of traffic. Now you're adding all the sporting facilities. That's a really big deal.
It's a very big deal. Yes, it is. So traffic is one of those things that I have really geared towards being in this position. People don't think about how well that does partake into my job, but the school zones, the sidewalks, the kids that walk to school, the lighting in the community that is very dark in some areas, all those things I've been looking at, and I'm working closely with both entities, the the county, and the police department as a city coalition. And we work well together as both teams are moving forward with those things because they see on both sides how dangerous transportation or pedestrians or there's become a lot of more walkers and bike riders in the community, not just within the school district, but just in the community itself. So I am on a board with the Kansas City Traffic Road Safety, and I am on a few coalitions with the Drivers Education Coalition, and I'm the Pettis County. They've been helping with pedestrian safety because they see that as well, and they have a coalition. There's a lot of groups coming together to try to make our community better in those areas. In school zones, the police department did a huge thing last week with school zones and pulling people over in the school zones that were speeding because people just don't slow down.
That's right.
And I think they caught over 90 tickets
Isn't that
in
something?
2 days. Followed buses to pull people over for passing the buses while they're stopped getting students. All that does fall into my job. I see it as part of my job looking forward. And prior to me being in this position, that wasn't really looked at as my job. But I really feel like that's something that is geared towards my position.
Sure. Well, in fact, you and I were visiting just the other day about traffic safety and road realignments, what have you. With all of the activity out there at the high school campus and everything that's happening in Southwest Sedalia, I'm sure you've got a lot of issues there right now.
There is. And, if someone gets hurt, they're going to look at us. They're going to look at the people in charge of safety. And I don't want that to happen. I want to prevent those things from happening, come and fight it forward to where maybe we can get ahead of all this.
Yeah. One other thing, there's one last thing I want to bring up to you, and it just hit me. I didn't have it in my notes. But what about your involvement with the prevention of suicide?
So suicide is a soft spot for me. I have a lot of history with family with suicide, unfortunately. And so I work very closely when I was at the high school with the counselors I seen kids that needed someone to talk to, and I've been through some trainings with that on what we can do to prevent those things. And it's becoming a major issue throughout the nation of suicide because kids just don't know how to handle day-to-day activities, and they just unleash because they can't. It's like they don't know how to internalize all of the things going on, and I think it's gotten worse with media, and the bullying goes through media these days. So it makes they can't ever get away from it. When I was growing up, we didn't have phones. So when you went home, you were away from that drama. You didn't have the bullying because you could.
And you never get away from it now.
No, it's a constant. If they pick up their phone, it's there.
Right.
And kids aren't strong enough to just block those people out. They just won't let it go.
Sure.
Or talk to somebody because they don't want to snitch on somebody. So it is a very big issue. And I wish I could say it's getting better, but every day I see another news somewhere where a child has committed suicide.
Thank you for elaborating on that. That's very important. We've actually come to the end of another Let's Talk. I would like to thank our guest today, Ashley Stark, who is the Director of Safety and Security for the Sedalia 200 School District. Believe me, this young lady has a lot on her plate, and as do the people that work with her. We always talk about giving thanks or letting a veteran or a person active in the military, to tell them thank you when we've come across it. Not a bad idea. Let's think about our school officers that way too, and everything they do, and the things that are so important that they help keep things in line with the everyday lives of our students and the effort to bring them up in a safe environment. So pass a thank you out when you happen to see one of those folks. Ashley, thank you. We'll talk.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you for listening to another session of Let's Talk. We'll visit again in a future episode.